Am I the asshole here for refusing to continue being the one supporting my son's participation in a sport that he's not enthusiastic about, but my wife is? My wife, 40 female, grew up as a competitive athlete in squash, playing through college on an NCAA championship team. Her whole family is very into competitive sports. I, 47 male, on the other hand, never had much interest. And that's not to say that I was a couch potato. I was and have always been a frequent gym goer and into road cycling and skiing for fun, not competition. We have a son, 11 male. My wife put him into squash lessons and clinics starting at age 7. She's now started signing him up for tournaments. Even though this is mostly her doing, I'm the one taking him to and from lessons and clinics, driving to tournaments, etc. I'm also essentially the person financially responsible for our entire lifestyle with my separate money. I bought our houses, cars, pay all the utilities, insurance, school tuition, etc. My wife makes close to 6 figures, gets to spend it all on whatever she wants, and still usually has approximately $0 in her bank account. I'm not complaining about this. My income and wealth is multiples of hers, but this will be relevant later. I've noticed that our son seems kind of down when I have to take him to squash, and more down after he's done it. He has a lot of other interests. He loves coding, he plays guitar, he likes to ski, he likes bouldering, and between that and school, he's a conscientious and good student, time is very scarce. The same is true for me, but both my son and I are finding our ability to do these other activities being interfered with by my wife's insistence about how much time goes into squash. I should say that my son is okay at it, but he's never going to play Division I college, so it's not like college admissions and scholarships are in play here. I think it's great if he can play the game socially later in life, but he could achieve that spending 25% of the time on it that he does currently. And certainly we wouldn't need to burn whole weekends on tournaments. I've asked my wife to pick up more of the slack for shuttling him to squash stuff, but she always says that she has work that she needs to do that makes it impossible. Recently, my wife signed him up for a tournament which conflicted with a bouldering event that he wanted to do. He was sad, and I asked him, "Do you want to keep doing this much squash?" And he said that he didn't, but he didn't want to disappoint his mum. I said I would talk to her about it. She was resistant to letting him do less, saying that he would appreciate it once he pushes through. I told her that she needs to address this with our son, and that in the meantime, I was done dedicating my time and money to squash. If she wanted him to do more than a lesson or 2 a week, she would have to bring him and pay for it out of her own money. And if our son refused to cooperate with her in doing more squash than he wants, I would not enforce any consequences. She says that it isn't fair. She doesn't have the same money or time available that I have. I said that if you feel this passionate about our son's squash, then you need to put your money and time where your mouth is, and not just decree that our son needs to do it and that I need to be the chauffeur. She thinks I'm being an asshole about it and abusing my greater wealth and more flexible schedule. Actually, it's not more flexible, I'm just way more efficient at getting work done and being able to work hunched over a laptop at the squash courts to get what I want. I'm wondering what the collective wisdom of the Reddit crowd thinks. In the comments, Art Needs More Fluff says, "You're the asshole here if you let your wife force your son into unwanted activities, whether she pays for it or not. Your son is 11 and he wants to pursue what he is interested in. If he is not interested in being a competitive squash player, no one should be forcing him or guilting him into being one. Do an internet search on forcing children to play sports and see the harm that it does and the damage that it does to parent-child relationships. Part of being a good parent is providing a safe environment to your children for your children to learn to make mistakes and consequences, as well as teaching the other skills necessary for becoming an independent adult. At 11, your son should be deciding which of the 2 competing activities that he wants to participate in. His exploration of his interests should be driven by him. It's completely reasonable to insist that he has some form of physical activity and that if he signs up for an activity, he attends and completes the session. But that's about it. What type of activity should be up to him. You should have been checking in with and stopping this a long time ago, OP. OP replies, "Yeah, I feel like I was too slow in addressing this, But in fairness, before he was 10, he didn't really develop interests on his own. Now that he is older and more mature, it is very clear that he has more passion for certain activities than others. And only now that school is getting more intense and his other interests deeper does he experience that a heavy investment of time in squash will preclude other activities that he prefers. So I've only seen him start to get upset about it in the last year or so. Probably should have addressed this immediately, but in my own defense, I can say that I'm maybe a year late, not 4 years late. Stolp Scott says, "Honestly, I think you're approaching this from completely the wrong direction. The issue is not who gets to pay for what or who gets to be the taxi service. The issue is that your son does not enjoy playing squash and is only doing it to avoid disappointing his mother. She was a good squash player and got a good scholarship out of it. Okay, but your son won't, according to both his inclination and your comments about him not going to a Division I school. You and your son need to sit down with your wife and have a serious talk about how she is forcing him to live the life that she wants, and she is using her own passion and past experiences as the justification, as if he is a mini-mum. He is not, and he will come to hate the sport of squash and resent her for the fact that she's forcing him to be the person that she wants him to be, irrespective of his interest, or lack of, in her plan." OP replies, "The irony is that if he did one lesson or clinic a week and no more, he would be quite happy. He doesn't hate squash, he hates that he has to do so much squash that he can't do everything else he loves. So easing up on him would get my wife a son who will have a lifelong enjoyment of casual squash. Not easing up though, I agree, will get her a kid who hates squash." Adorable Cupcake replies, "It'll also get her a kid that resents his mother for forcing him to spend all of his time on squash." OP adds this reply to a deleted comment, saying, "You know, funny thing is, my 2 brother-in-laws were pushed by my father-in-law to play tennis and squash respectively. They were both very competitive players through college, but gave it up as soon as they graduated. And it's been a real sore point in their relationship with my in-laws how hard they were pushed to focus on one sport. So my wife has seen a model of this dynamic, but somehow is not applying it to this situation." I get that you're coming to Reddit for kind of validation in your thought processes, and I mean that by, like, I think you know that you have to have this conversation with your wife. And yes, let's all validate you. It is more than okay to have this tough conversation with her, and I encourage you to do it, saying, you really need to pump the brakes on this squash. Otherwise, you're going to squash his soul and he's not going to love you anymore. And it's good that you recognize that you're a year late to this and not 4 years late. The longer that you let this go on, the worse the outcome is going to be for your son. He is going to start resenting both of you more for not putting his interests first and just you two kind of kowtowing to her demands. It's a confronting conversation to have, absolutely, and it's not going to be an easy one. But if you're married to this woman, you guys trust each other, you should have mutual respect for each other, you should be able to break through and be like, you need to stop putting so much pressure on him. Look how that's gone for the in-laws. They hate the fact that your parents forced them into playing tennis and squash. Why are you repeating those same mistakes when you've seen how this plays out? Do you want that relationship with your kid in the future? Is that really what you want? I believe that's a hill to die on, and I think you should die on that hill. 1 lesson a week is the perfect outcome here. If she can't accept that, then you need to have some deeper conversations about everyone's relationship with everyone else, in your family, of course. And now, onto the update. As I anticipated, when I pulled my money and time from supporting squash, she was either unwilling, in my view, or unable, her view, to step up. Obviously, I saw this as a good thing, since I felt that my son wants, appropriately, to do less squash and more of his other interests, bouldering, skiing, guitar being the big 3 extracurriculars. But in the hopes of getting to a more consensual outcome, I told my wife that I would continue to take my son to 1 clinic and 1 lesson a week, no tournaments, for the interim. If she agreed to go to a bouldering session, to the drop-off or pick-up of a ski lesson, we go to a vacation home to ski over our spring break in March, just happened, and to a guitar lesson, and at each to speak to the instructor to get their perspective on our son's interest and aptitude. Then she could compare it to how she seems to feel about/perform in squash. She agreed, and now that we're back from skiing, she has done all 3. The result was pretty much as I expected. All 3 teachers mentioned that he seemed incredibly passionate about the activity and that he was extremely coachable. The bouldering and ski teachers were clear that he's probably not going to be some sort of champion, aptitude-wise, though the guitar teacher calls him one of his most talented students. In comparison, his squash coach says that he needs to bring more intensity to his efforts. Even to my squash-favoring wife, it was clear that her contention that he needs to just push through with squash does not match up with his immediate and enduring interests and passion for his other activities. We talked about it together, and my wife agreed that she'll follow our son's lead on squash. We asked him what his ideal outcome is, and he said that he'd like to continue squash at a low intensity so that he can play it socially. He wants to do clinic once a week, and once a week to play with his mum. He said that being able to play with her would be one of the main reasons for him to keep playing, and that he has been disappointed that she hadn't done it much. She said that she didn't realize that, but that it made her happy that he wants to play with her and that she will make time. So we have what seems to be a solution. No more tournaments, 1 clinic a week, and periodic mum and son hitting sessions. Imagine hearing that out of context. Amoria Splooge says, how she was a competitive squash player and not playing with him or being his coach from the beginning is beyond me. OP says, I think the source of the problem is her job, or at least her approach to it. It is very consuming, and that has led her to turn to me to do more of the parenting than is good for our son or for her. Seeing our son doing activities that she really had not been involved in before made her realize the degree to which work had taken her away from parenting. Substantial Good asks, when does your son just get to be a kid? I don't mean sitting around playing video games, I mean hanging out with friends without constant coaching, just to breathe. Childhood should not look like a job. OP says, he's the one who asked to do all these activities, except for squash. That's just the kind of kid that he is. The bouldering is also something where he does it as a part of a group of other kids on a team, so it serves as social time for him. Substantial Good replies, does he have any downtime? How many days a week do the activities consume? How much time do you spend with him, other than in the car running from one activity to the next? These are things to think about. Not suggesting becoming a helicopter parent, just being a part of his life. OP says, climbing is 1 weekend morning, we drive to a nearby city like 45 minutes, he does the climbing team, I work out at the same gym. We go get lunch together and drive home. Squash is now 90 minutes 1 evening a week, guitar lesson 1 hour 2 times a week, and he practices maybe an hour a day. He usually does something with his friends all day 1 weekend day. His school is relatively light on homework, so he gets his share of video games, airsoft, etc. The problem was that squash was taking up like 3 evenings a week and some tournaments that killed whole weekends. Yeah, look, maybe my response was a bit extra, but it seems that OP knew his wife enough that you didn't have to have big ultimatum conversations, and she was reasonable enough to come to a good conclusion with him and not die on the hill of, my son is doing squash competitively whether you like it or not. I know a lot of people won't, agree with OP's parenting style there as well, but, everyone parents their kids differently. If you were a latchkey kid back in the day, you're gonna see this rigorous structure of constantly being around your parents and constantly bouncing between different activities and have a visceral reaction to it to be like, what the hell? I wasn't allowed home until it was 10 at night. They had to put advertisements on the TV being like, do you know where your kids are right now? I don't know. I can understand the reactions to it and being like, well, just let the kid be a kid. That's fine. But at the same time, society changes and everyone is different. And if OP's son likes doing all of this, I'd still say that's a normal childhood personally. Regardless, I think OP and his wife handled this situation phenomenally, and I'd like to see more of it. But otherwise, don't need any more updates, and thank you for the story, OP. Our next post is by user Family Troubles Throw, titled, "My 22 female, younger brother, 19 male, has been acting strangely possessive of me and is accusing me of being jealous of his girlfriend when I confront him about it. My brother and I have always been very close. Growing up, we were each other's best friends. We've been through a lot of stuff. Our parents' divorce, death of a few family members, even a devastating house fire when we were little. Even though we're both adults now, we still really rely on and trust each other. After graduating high school, I went to college in a different state. I felt really bad for leaving my brother behind, but other than our parents being divorced, our home life had always been great. He was still rather upset with the fact that I was leaving and didn't want to stay home to be with him. I felt, and still feel, like it was a little unreasonable for him to react that way. I promised that I would call and visit as frequently as possible. When my brother graduated from high school, he asked if he could come down to live with me. It wasn't too strange for him to ask. We lived in a small town, and the place I moved was a bigger and more interesting city. Since he had decided not to go straight to college, it seemed like moving to the city with me was his only chance to get out of our hometown. I told him that we could look for a new place for when my lease was up. I lived in a studio apartment and wasn't about to share that tiny space with an 18-year-old boy. Ultimately, we found a reasonable 2-bedroom and moved into it right before my classes started. Things were a little weird right off the bat. He got very upset when he found out that I had been casually dating. It seemed like he was upset that I hadn't told him. He was mad that we were drifting apart so far that I couldn't tell him that I was dating, even if I wasn't in a committed relationship or anything. Then he asked if I could refrain from bringing guys over to our home. When I asked him why, he said that it made him uncomfortable. I told him that I could respect that while I was just casually dating guys, but if I got into a relationship, I would certainly be bringing my boyfriend over. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, he told me. Well, we got to that bridge. I had a new boyfriend, and I decided to confront my brother about having him over. I hadn't told my boyfriend why I insisted that we always hang out at his apartment, and he didn't ask. We got into a huge screaming fight where my brother basically told me that college guys only want sex and that I should be focusing on school. I couldn't believe this was happening. When I told him that I was an adult and would do what I wanted, he reminded me that he paid rent and had input into what went on in his home. We compromised that my boyfriend could come over but wouldn't stay overnight. I told him that solution would work for the time being, but we would need to reassess. Again, he told me that we would cross that bridge when we came to it. After having this same argument 2 or 3 times, I told my brother that if he wasn't willing to stop being weird about this, I wasn't going to be living with him once the lease was up. He apologized profusely, but continued to insist that he was right in this situation. He finally told me that he would let me make my own mistakes. Unfortunately, things didn't go well with that boyfriend. We broke up for reasons unrelated to my brother. Of course, my brother took advantage of this to tell me that he was right and that I should have listened to him. Around that time, I called my mom and told her about how weird he was being. She insisted that he was trying to take the place of our father since he hadn't really been involved in our lives since they were divorced. And even if it's true, I still didn't feel like it justified his behavior. Over the summer, a friend of mine was getting married, so I was out of town for the wedding. When I came home, a bunch of my stuff was missing. Stuff like my perfume, some clothes and lotion, and I asked my brother about it, but he denied taking any of it. He told me that he'd had some friends over, so they must have taken my stuff. He told me that he would deal with it and get my stuff back. He did eventually bring my stuff to me, but I'm not totally convinced that his friends took it. After all, he didn't seem at all upset about them having stolen things from me. About a month ago, he told me that he had a girlfriend and that he wanted to bring her over to meet me. I briefly considered making a big stink about it like he had with my ex, but I decided to be an adult and told him that would be great. He scheduled a big dinner and cooked and asked me to dress up and everything. I was kinda relieved that he had someone he was so interested in because maybe he would be less weird than he had been. When this girl showed up, though, he was in the kitchen when she arrived, so I answered the door, and it was like looking in a mirror. I could tell that she was just as alarmed as I was at how much we looked alike. We both have platinum blonde hair, fair skin, green eyes, and similarly shaped bodies. We're also approximately the same height. During dinner, we discovered that we also have lots of other things in common. She goes to a different college nearby, but has the same major that I do. We also like a lot of the same music and share a lot of mannerisms. After she left, I asked my brother if he had noticed how much she and I look alike. He rolled his eyes and told me that I was just being weird. I don't know if I am. He brings her over all the time, and they make out in the living room on the couch. When I asked him if they could take it into his room, he accused me of being jealous that he wasn't making out with me, which was confusing to both his girlfriend and myself. At that moment, it kind of started to seem like he was trying to make me jealous with her. I wouldn't think too much of it if he hadn't been acting so strange since we moved in together. I can't tell if I'm just imagining things or not. I don't want to feel like my little brother has a crush on me, especially since we live together, but I also don't know how to talk about it with him without him saying that I'm just being crazy or jealous or whatever. Please help me. In the comments, Memento Mori says, move out ASAP. Also try to get him into counseling. He obviously has an unhealthy obsession with you, but it doesn't sound like he's very approachable about it. Do you have a lock for your door? You should lock your door when you're out so he can't get in and take your things. He is completely inappropriate. OP says, I do have a lock for my door. It never occurred to me before that I should have to lock it when I left the apartment. This sucks. Thromaxibon says, you should probably also lock it while you're asleep. I don't want to jump to your brother might wake you up one night trying to climb into your bed, but my first thought when you said he took your stuff was that he either used it for getting off or made his girlfriend wear your clothes while they banged. It's not impossible, so be careful. OP says, yeah, I definitely washed the clothes as soon as I got them back, but if that's what he was doing, maybe burning them would be a better route. Honestly, I'd be breaking the lease as soon as possible. Immediately cutting contact with your brother in this situation and putting some distance between you two. At the very least, very low contact with him and being like, you need to get to therapy, what you're doing is insane, get some help. You are not right in the head, and all of your behavior around me is sick and disgusting and it makes me feel unsafe. You need to take some time to seriously evaluate the way that you have been living your life and, your thoughts and actions towards me because they are not okay. Something like that, Something to slap him back into reality and get him to stop being such a creep. None of this is okay, and you're not crazy in, your suspicions at all. And now, onto the update. Thank you all for your comments and messages. I appreciate all your concerns and the confirmation that I am not crazy. So I met up with my future roommate to tell her that I had officially decided not to live with my brother anymore. I gave her a full rundown of everything that had happened between the two of us. We've made appointments to tour some houses and apartments this week. She also said that I'm welcome to move into her place if I don't feel like I can ride out the lease. On Friday night, my brother had his girlfriend over, and they were watching movies in the living room. It had been recommended to me that I approach him about it while she was around because he would be less likely to fly off the handle. Just in case, I packed a bag full of valuable things and stuff that I would need if I had to book it immediately. They finished one of the movies they had been watching. He went in the kitchen to get them some more snacks, and his girlfriend was still in the living room, so I figured that this would be a good time. This way we weren't airing all of our dirty laundry in front of her, but she would be there if he started yelling or anything. I asked him if he could talk for a second. He seemed a little irritated, probably because I was interrupting his date, but said it was fine. I told him that I felt like we didn't make very compatible roommates and that I wouldn't be renewing the lease with him for next month. When he asked why, I told him that I felt like he didn't respect me as a roommate. I wanted to live somewhere with a person who would let me make the calls on who was or wasn't allowed to be in my house. I wanted to live with someone who gave a shit if their friends were stealing from me. He told me that he respected me more than anyone else that I could live with. He said that it's because he respects me so much that he gave me a hard time about the boyfriend thing. I said that if he really respected me, he would give me the room to decide if a boyfriend was good for me or not. Around that time, he started getting louder and angrier, so his girlfriend came in to check and see if things were cool. He told her that things were fine and that she should probably go. I panicked and tried to play it off a little, so I said stuff like, "Oh, no, don't let me ruin your evening. Please stay. I'm just about to leave." He kept telling her to go before finally I was begging her to please stay. He could tell that I was kind of scared and started laughing at me. He asked if I was afraid of him and told me that I was being ridiculous. He asked his girlfriend if she thought that there was any good reason for me to be afraid of him. She seemed really worried or confused and told him that he was being weird. He explained that I had just told him that I was bailing on him as a roommate and that I was being a horrible see you next Tuesday about things that weren't a big deal. He asked his girlfriend to leave again, and she did. Once she was gone, he told me that I was just pissed that he wasn't going to let me be a huge sla-la-la-la like I wanted to be. He told me that someday I would meet the perfect guy for me, but he wouldn't want to date me because I would have sex with so many guys, and nobody worthwhile wants to marry a skank. He said that he was trying to help me so that I wouldn't wind up in that situation. I told him that I was going to leave, and that we could talk again whenever he was ready to talk without saying horrible things to me, but that I was going to be giving our landlord notice by Monday. I went into my room and got my bag. I locked my door behind me and headed to the door. When I was almost to the front door, he appeared almost right behind me and said my name. I turned around very quickly, and as I did, he punched me right in the face. He didn't knock me out or anything, but I collapsed on the floor. Without saying anything else, he stepped over me and went out the door, leaving me there. I iced my eye for a while, which is now pretty swollen and purple, before I grabbed my bag and left. I called my mum and talked on the phone with her while I walked to my car so that if she approached me, she would hear what happened. She insisted that I was exaggerating about what he had done, so I sent her a picture of my face. She started crying and apologized for being dismissive. I told her that it was okay, but I didn't want to be forced to spend time with him in any family situations ever again. I haven't seen him since then. I've been staying with my new roommate. I've gotten a few texts from him but haven't responded yet. Here's what they say. "Where did you go? I came home and now you're gone? We have to finish talking about this. Are you effing kidding me? Tell me where you are or that you're alive. I'm scared that I haven't heard from you. You know how worried I am when you fall off the face of the earth like this. You're being such a child right now. I don't know what you said to Mum, but you've really upset her. I hope you're happy. I'll be home all day Monday if you want to come over and meet with the landlord to give notice. That's fine. Where am I going to live?" His girlfriend even texted me once to tell me how worried he is about me. I'm a little nervous about tomorrow. As I said, I haven't texted him back about joining him tomorrow. I told my new roommate that I need her to come with me. She suggested that I not wear any makeup so he can see the reality of what he did to my face. I don't know. What do you all think? OP replied to a deleted comment. "This has definitely changed how I feel about my mum's ability to parent." OP, when told to file a police report, "I'm currently on hold with the police department. If they need for me to come into the station in order to fill out the report, I'll do that first thing in the morning." Alton Brown fan says, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. An OP with a backbone and actually goes to the police when they need to?" OP says, "I'm kind of feeling like if I really had a backbone, I would have stood up to him before things escalated to this point, but thanks." When told to contact the brother's girlfriend, OP says, "I just sent her a text message to ask if she was with him. For some reason, I feel like engaging in this with her while they're together might put her in a bad situation. I don't know if it's true or not, but I'd like to think that I can trust my gut on this one." Edit, "I'm going to the police station with my roommate to file a report. I'm also trying to get in touch with his girlfriend to let her know what's going on. I haven't decided whether or not I should tell her that I'm going to the police with this. I emailed the landlord to make sure that he knows that I'm putting in notice, but don't want to meet to sign the paperwork if I have to meet with my brother. I haven't contacted my brother at all yet. I'm also thinking about calling my dad. He isn't super active in my life, but since my mum's turned out to be less than helpful in this situation, I'd like to have a family member on my side if I can. And now, onto the second update. Last night, my roommate and I went to the police station and filed a police report. I recounted to them all of the weird things that had happened with my brother in the past year that we've lived together. I told them that his girlfriend was a witness to the argument and showed them the text conversation with my mother. They also took pictures of my face in its current state, since my face is obviously more evidently bruised than in the picture that I sent my mum. I couldn't think of a whole lot of questions to ask at the time. I was very nervous and a little overwhelmed, and they didn't provide me with a lot of information. They gave me a copy of the report and told me that a detective was being assigned to my case and would call me sometime today. I don't know if they're going to be making an arrest or not. I think that they automatically have to in my state when this kind of report is filed, but I'm not sure. I feel really stupid for not thinking to ask such a basic question, but I also feel like it's kind of weird that they didn't offer that information. They did tell me that they would be happy to escort me to the apartment to collect my belongings if I felt that was necessary. His girlfriend called me a few times while I was at the police station, but I was obviously busy and couldn't take her calls. I texted her when I was done and asked if it was too late for me to call. She was still up, so I called and told her about what had happened once she left. She immediately started apologizing. I assured her that what happened wasn't her fault. I asked if he had ever done anything like that to her, and she said no. I hope she was being honest. I didn't mention to her that I had gone to the police. I just said that I wanted to let her know for her own safety. She thanked me and apologized some more. She didn't say what our next steps were going to be, but I told her that I would be checking in to make sure she was doing okay, which she said she would appreciate. This morning I called our dad. I haven't talked to my dad since Father's Day. He's remarried and has a few younger children with his new wife. He's definitely one of those remarried dads who ignores his old family in favor of his new one. I wasn't anticipating much sympathy from him, but he really surprised me. He told me that based on some of my brother's behavior from his childhood, violent tendencies towards other kids at school around the time of the divorce, which I'd never heard about from anyone until that moment, the whole thing didn't especially shock him. Dad's fairly well off financially and offered to get me a lawyer if I thought I needed one. He highly advised I at least meet with a lawyer to get a professional legal opinion on where to go from here. I took his offer and am meeting with a lawyer in my city tomorrow when I get off of work. My brother cannot afford a lawyer on his own, and my mother cannot afford to help him financially. Having a lawyer is definitely an advantage to me. Thank you all for giving me the kick in the ass that I needed to go to the police. I still haven't contacted my brother, and I think I'll refrain from doing so until after the meeting with the lawyer tomorrow. My mum has sent me a few text messages asking why I haven't been in touch with my brother. I haven't responded to those either. And that's the end of that. OP never came back with another update after this one. All I can say is, she needs to do something about that mum not protecting her, not recognizing that he is a threat. Mum saying, oh, why haven't you been in touch with your brother? He actually didn't do anything too wrong. Why is she defending him? Why is she trying to get OP to reach out to an abuser at this point? I'd cut both of them off. And if you can't cut your mum off in this situation, OP, extremely limited contact. Someone like that is not good for your safety, because she will eventually leak your details to your brother, and there will be a repeat. It's not exactly an if, it's more so a when. I hope everything went well for you after this, OP. I'm sorry to hear that you went through all of that, but thank you for sharing your story with us. You know, you do have to go to the police and protect yourself when things like this happen. Anyway, guys, that's where I'm going to end today's episode. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.